Welcome to Parev TV. Our guest today is Dr. Aram Mrjoian. We'll call him Aram from here on. He is an educator, a writer, a editor of this new book, which is going to be the topic of our discussion. We are all Armenian voices from the diaspora, edited by Aram Mrjoian, and this is published by University of Texas Press in Austin. This is a collection of 18 essays, Aram, of established and also emerging writers who are exploring Armenian identity, interracial relations, interethnic relations, black, white, gay, lesbian. The whole gamut is in this book. And I have to say, first, I've said, and I will say it again, congratulations on this book. Not only did I read the book, I have inhaled every single word that is in the book. And it's not about snow-capped Mount Ararat. It's not about journeys in the genocide. It's not about grandma's recipes. It is really a book that is about time to accept, to read, to understand, and to respond and act. What is the genesis of this book? There has to be a beginning. How did it all start?
Well, thank you so much for having me. And certainly that reading, the way you just described your reading experience is really meaningful to me, because that was a big part of the genesis of the book, of seeing a lot of Armenian writers I admired, writers that I was, perhaps friends or colleagues with, and us all kind of having this experience of like, well, like everything is what you're saying, it's writing about grandma's recipes or writing about the genocide or kind of talking about this idyllic homeland in ways that weren't necessarily talking about contemporary experiences, the way that a lot of diasporan Armenians are living today, and some of the issues that we are, dealing with today. And so a big part of this book kind of came from what would happen if we took away some of those expectations of what it means to write about Armenian identity or what it means to write about being an Armenian, and freed up space to talk about some other stuff. And so I was really interested in that, and I was kind of reading a lot of Armenian writers. I was kind of constantly finding new Armenian writers and thinking, wouldn't it be great if there was a place where all of this could come together? And luckily, University of Texas Press, had sent me some books that were similar. And, I was really interested in what they were doing and kind of reached out to one of the editors there and said, hey, I love some of the books you're putting out. I would like to do a book about diaspora and Armenians and do some essays on that. And from there, that was March 2020. A very different time, kind of the very beginning of the pandemic. At that point, we weren't, at that point, it wasn't even really being called a pandemic yet. And the editor said, put together a proposal. Let's see what we can do. And a month or two later, I sent them that, and they were interested. And 3 years later, here we are. But it was a long process, one that certainly changed in the light of current events and global health. But here we are with it's so, like I said, it's so good to see the book in your hands.
Aram, what was the process of selection? How did it work? Were there many others who would have been in the book, or was it difficult to get writers?
So it definitely was not difficult to get writers. Actually, originally I reached out because the University of Texas Press, part of what they wanted done with the proposal was they wanted to know who would be included on the front end, or at least a loose idea. And so sometimes with these types of projects, you do, an open call for submissions and see what you get. And then, kind of make selections. We went about it the other way, where they said, if you're going to put together this book, we need some evidence of who's going to be in it and, how you're thinking about curating it. And so that made it my responsibility before even sending that proposal to research a lot of Armenian writers, to start reaching out to those I admired, those whose work I was just finding for the first time, and curating that together. And so originally there was a list of about 25. There were about 25 writers I reached out to. 2 or 3 of them just said, hey, thank you, I can't do this right now.
Mm.
2 or 3 others were really excited about the project, but things came up early on where they couldn't finish. And then so we went from about that somewhere between 25 and 30 to about 18, the 18 that are included here. And I'm really happy with the way it came together.
You have given voice to the voices that have been historically, the book says, have been silenced. And honestly, when I read the book, the first story I read was Hava Nagila. I said, what is this story? What is Hava Nagila got to do with we're all Armenian? The title was nothing to do with Armenian. And then from there on, I picked up each and every one. But tell me, what was your mission? And did you accomplish, you think, what was the response to your work? What was your mission? What were you trying to tell us?
I think a big part of my mission is, again, expanding that idea of what it means to be Armenian, opening up opportunities for those who maybe have felt, a little bit marginalized, or who have felt not welcomed either in their own communities or outside of their communities, to have a voice, to talk about intersectionality, to talk about inclusivity. And to really give space to writers to do that. And I think I succeeded to a pretty good extent here. I mean, certainly that's been the response, and that's been rewarding. But we can always be doing better, right? Part of me does wish that I could have included a wider geography, diasporans from, more evenly dispersed all over the world, because certainly there are a lot of, American, Canadian, European perspectives in here, but what other countries, could we go to hear other perspectives, and more of a range of ages too. Honestly, I mean that there is, I believe the youngest contributors in this are kind of in their early 20s. Older contributors somewhere in their later age, but those real extremes, of maybe teenagers, maybe writers who are very much older, septuagenarians, octogenarians. I didn't necessarily get those perspectives, and so I think that could help this collection be a little bit broader. And so I hope that we get more of those perspectives in the future, and I hope that this collection can help kind of welcome them in.
For the third time, congratulations. Really, this has been a very different experience reading these books, and some were very powerful. I thought I follow Armenian news, especially Nancy Agabian's essay about the revolution in Armenia and the persecution of such groups. It was an eye-opener, to say the least. And in your introductory remarks, you have said, I hope this book fills you with light and outrage, joy and concern, self-reflection, and urgent action. What is the urgent action you're talking about?
Well, I think the urgent action, again, is partially welcoming more people into our communities, thinking about some of the ways that we have put barriers or boundaries on what it means to be Armenian and who gets to claim that title. But also urgent action in the sense of really thinking through, our politics and how we are, there's no such thing as an ethnic monolith. Armenians, are conservative, democratic, all over the map. And so, but I want that urgent action to be, kind of thinking about, what are we doing to take care of the people around us? What does it mean when, there's war breaking out in Artsakh? What does it mean when there's a blockade there? But also, what does it mean when there are Armenians in Los Angeles that don't feel welcomed in their communities or feel violence within their communities? What does it mean when queer Armenians don't necessarily, are either, bullied or made fun of, or, treated, ostracized by their families, by their churches? And so we need to be having these conversations, this urgent action, again, that all kinds of violence, all kinds of harm are a problem. And so how do we address them? How do we start talking about them?
Many of the contributors, the writers, are very well-established, prominent, influential people. And I have a name of Olivia Katranjian, who is the president of International Armenian Literary Alliance. And I want to bring her up because I enjoyed reading her words where she says, I think I have it right here. It says, my daughter can eat bright green scrambled eggs with her paternal grandpa on St. Patrick's Day, but you better believe before that she'll be eating yalancha. And so typical, so powerful Armenian woman saying, hey, I'm an Armenian. I'm going to tell them Armenian will come first in my life. Another person I would like to just quote, because these two I really was laughing out loud, and he is the Canadian Broadcast Corporation, Rafi Bujikanian. And he says, and this is where I could relate to his writing, because there's also humor. He says, I lost track of the number of times I drove to the airport to pick up relatives, aunts, cousins from Beirut, from Paris. So as immigrants, we going to the airport is part of our life, it seems, especially to greet newcomers. And which was your most powerful essay? Is there one you enjoyed most?
Well, that's such a hard question
It
to
is a
answer
hard question, I know, yes.
because they all, you know, do things in different ways. So what I will say is the Naira Kuzmich's essay Haba Nagila, the one that you mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
that one's very powerful to me because it's one I read before putting any of this together. And you know, Naira passed away in
Yes.
2017. And so there's kind of, I think I have an emotional connection to that because I'm really interested in her work and think her work is so powerful, while also, you know, kind of conceiving this collection after her death, and also, you know, seeing what that essay did and helping inspire this. You know, that it was one of the ones right away when I started out on this project. I said, I know I have to have this piece in here. This feels like it's a necessary part of this collection. And so, you know, I reached out to her family and they were very kind and said, you know, go ahead. And I reached out to Michigan Quarterly Review, which originally published it, and they were very kind and said, you know, absolutely. And so I feel privileged to include that. But all of them, you know, all the essays are so different and they're all doing so much work. You brought up Nancy Agabian's essay as well. This long essay about revolutionary Armenians. And one of the things I really love about that is it's just, there's so much reporting, there's so much journalism. It's really, it's such a big project. And so to be able to include that felt like a gift too.
That was a very powerful essay. I really believe that you have been able to give us stories of diaspora Armenians in a way that volumes of history could never be able to accomplish, because in these 18 essays, we see ourselves in these essays, and is really truly a picture of modern diaspora Armenians. I'd like to go back before I forget about in 2022, you were a Creative Armenia AGBU Fellow. Tell us about that experience.
Well, I think I got really lucky, honestly. I know a lot of people apply for that fellowship. It's global, it's multidisciplinary. And so you have artists applying from around the world, not just Armenians either, because as long as you are engaging somehow with Armenian culture, with Armenian history, you can apply. And so I know they've had non-Armenian fellows as well. And so I felt really lucky when they sent me an email and said, hey, you're a finalist. We'll let you know in a few weeks whether or not you won this, got this fellowship. I was shocked, in part because I think, you know, you're doing all of this work and kind of focused on these projects, but it can feel very isolated. And so to put that all together and then see that someone else was interested in it, thought that work was, you know, worthwhile, worth supporting, was really, really rewarding. And the fellowship itself was great, not just for the financial benefits, which certainly, you know, it comes with a $5,000 stipend that helped support me throughout the year and helped me focus on my art. But also getting to meet my cohort, getting to meet all sorts of artists that I otherwise probably would not have. And, you know, getting interviewed, you know, getting connected with people for, to promote my own work and to, you know, kind of develop myself more. That was really worthwhile and really exciting.
You know, this morning only I opened the book randomly, and I came across the grandparents of one of the writers who came to America in the early 1900s and told the taxi driver, I want to go to Worcester. Worcester. He says, no, there's no such a place as Worcester. It's Worcester. And, the experience of a newcomer and the challenges we all have in this country and how far we have come. Aram, you are of a product of intermarriage. Your mom is Polish, I understand.
Yeah.
And your dad is Armenian. How has that worked out?
Well, I think it's interesting because truthfully, one of the surprises of this has been, and it's been very nice, is having so many Armenian organizations kind of reach out. They want to talk about the book. But, and I say this in my introduction, I've been as transparent about this as I can be. My background is in writing and editing. But, I didn't necessarily grow up around a wealth of Armenian culture in the sense that my grandparents on my dad's side, my Armenian side, passed away when I was relatively young. I don't speak the language. I grew up with, some of the cliches. I grew up with the food. I grew up with.
You grew up with a name Aram.
Grew up with the name. Grew up with some of the literature and music here or there. But not necessarily that kind of, cultural surrounding that you would expect, I guess, of someone who identifies strongly as Armenian. And so, I don't think it's made that much of a difference at all about the sense of being half Polish and half Armenian. That's just how I look at myself as who I am. And I've been very lucky to be supported by both my parents. My mom and my dad have always believed in my art and believed in me, kind of pursuing writing. And so I feel extremely lucky for that. They've never really, so many of the contributors in this collection talk about the pressures of family, of outside forces, feeling like they have to be a certain type of person to be accepted. And I'm so lucky in the fact that really my family has always been so accepting of me. And so I think that's a huge bonus. It's a huge boon and been very useful to me as an artist. And I'm very grateful for it.
When I brought up intermarriages, basically I'm very close to the community, and we always not complain, but we always bring up the fact that over 90% of Armenians there is intermarriage within 90% of the community. That's a very, very high number. And these issues have to be addressed because it affects each and every Armenian. One thing I liked about Kohar Avakian is one of the writers. I don't know why these three words impressed me a lot. It has to do with her background. She was interrogating archival silence. To interrogate archival silence. That's, for me, it was very powerful. I figured I'll bring it up only. Aram, is there anything else you want to add?
I like I said, I think I've said this a couple places already, but really the biggest thing I'll add is just that I hope people can take this book and read it and use it as a jumping off point for conversations with friends or family, for being able to talk about, inclusion, for being able to talk about intersectionality, and recognizing that, the book is one point in time. It's something that, now is out in the world. But the more that we can use it as an opportunity to kind of explore, other writing, to explore more of the conversations that like the one that we're having right now, I think that's really my hope for it.
Aram, once again, congratulations. I enjoyed the book. As I said, I have inhaled every single word, and may we hear from you with a sequel or some other books, and good luck in all your future undertakings. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.